When Dr. Weston A. discovered isolated populations in the mid-1930s, he found something very strange. There were entire populations of people with perfectly straight teeth and zero cavities, despite having no dentists, braces, or any form of brushing their teeth. But today, over 3.7 billion people suffer from some type of oral disease, with crooked teeth becoming the new normal. So, given there wasn't a dentist in sight, what allowed these populations to develop such wide jaws, straight teeth, and virtually zero disease? They have neither physician nor dentist because they have so little need for them. After losing his son at just 15 years old due to complications from a failed root canal, Price began traveling around the world to study isolated populations with near-perfect dental health, hoping to understand what actually made their teeth healthy and how that health developed in the first place. Today, most people assume that straight teeth and jaw structure are mostly genetic, and that preventing cavities is simply just a matter of brushing their teeth. But if crooked teeth were genetic, they would likely take thousands of years to appear. Yet Price found that this collapse could happen in just one generation. When he observed close relatives, even siblings and twins, and despite sharing the same genetic blueprint, they experienced dramatically different outcomes. So although genes can act as a blueprint, environmental factors can strongly influence how this blueprint is carried out. Take chewing for example. Proper oral function stimulates jaw growth during childhood. Without this stimulus, a jaw simply fails to grow to its intended size. In some cases, the environmental pressures can also influence how genes are expressed. This is called epigenetics. Therefore, if the environment or food is more congruent with what our biology actually expects, then these blueprints or genes are far more likely to express themselves properly and are less likely to be altered. So what was the difference between these traditional versus modern diets? These traditional populations were generally all meat-based. Although this varied by region, some nearing 100% carnivorous diets like the Inuits, while others did eat some plant matter, they all had one thing in common. They prioritized and prized nutrient-dense animal foods. This aligns perfectly with what humans ate for the majority of our evolution, mostly fatty meat from large ruminant animals, a drastic contrast to what modern diets look like today. As Price noted, these diets were loaded with fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K2. He hypothesized that they were over 10 times higher in these fat-soluble activators than modern diets. If these populations did eat plant matter, it was never eaten raw, refined, or industrialized. Instead, it was processed using methods our ancestors had relied on for thousands of years, methods that we have largely forgotten. This meant soaking, fermenting, and cooking plant foods to reduce anti-nutrients, which are natural plant defenses that plants produce to prevent animals from eating them, which can block vitamin absorption and wreak havoc in the gut. Take the Swiss for example. Compared to most other traditional tribes, they ate a significant amount of bread, but this bread was drastically different than any bread you can find in your local store. Their rye was slowly fermented for days using a sourdough starter, which activates the enzyme phytase, allowing phytic acid to be broken down and the minerals to be absorbed instead of locked away. Modern bread is fermented in hours, not days, leaving gluten and phytic acid largely intact. This is because this is engineered for efficiency and convenience rather than digestion. And not only that, but traditional rye was so dense it required intense chewing, providing the physical workout the jawbone expects. Our modern bread does the opposite. It requires almost no chewing, blocks mineral absorption, and removes the very mechanical signal needed for proper jaw development. So the pattern becomes clear. The base was always animal foods, and if plant matter was eaten, it was carefully prepared to reduce or eliminate plant toxins and unlock nutrients, but never relied on as the foundation of the diet. But what is it about animal foods specifically that makes them so effective for building the skull and jaw in the first place? Now, at this point, most people would assume that you can just brush your teeth and avoid sugar to prevent cavities. But what's interesting is that Price found that many of these populations did not brush their teeth or have the means to do so, and they still didn't have any cavities even though there was plaque buildup. And sure, it may still have been ideal for these populations to brush their teeth to remove plaque for hygiene and aesthetics. But the main issue today is that we focus too much on trying to fix dental problems from the outside rather than from the inside, which is where most of the real work is done. This is where what Price referred to as Activator X comes into play. Price saw this pattern repeat across every traditional culture he studied, regardless of geography or genetics. The main vitamins he was interested in, which he referred to as fat-soluble activators, were vitamins A, D, and activator X, and he found that these were present exclusively in nutrient-dense animal foods. So the key insight was that these vitamins don't work in isolation, they work as a system. Think of them like the conductor of a symphony. Take calcium for example. We're constantly told that we need calcium for strong bones and healthy teeth, but without a conductor, calcium is just a raw material. It can actually end up in the wrong places, like the arteries, kidneys, or other soft tissues. Vitamin A acts as the growth signal, telling cells how to differentiate and what structures to build. Vitamin D acts as the mineral absorption switch, allowing calcium to actually enter the bloodstream and be used by the body. And activator X, which was later identified as vitamin K2, acts like a GPS, directing calcium into the teeth and bones, rather than letting it accumulate in places that it doesn't belong. Now, some people will say that this just proves that sugar is the real problem, and yes, reducing sugar consumption does lower the damage, but it doesn't explain why our teeth became stronger or why decay arises in the first place. When these vitamins are missing or out of balance, Price observed a predictable outcome: physical degeneration. This is why the cavities appeared after jaw narrowing. The structural failure came first, and Price repeatedly noted that this was especially critical during preconception, pregnancy, and childhood, because these are the windows where facial structure and jaw architecture are mostly built. But there's more to meat than just the nutrients, especially in terms of jaw formation. Today, we assume that most structural problems with our jaws are genetic, and that braces or ripping out our wisdom teeth are the solution to these structural problems with our jaws. But what if we had more control than we think, especially during early development? Wolff's Law states that bones will become stronger and adapt depending on the loads placed upon them, and can weaken when those loads are removed. And this leads us to our first problem, the soft food epidemic. Our jaws have evolved to expect the toughness of chewing meat, and when plants were found, they were usually fibrous tubers, not white bread and banana smoothies. Therefore, the sudden rise in highly processed foods has not only deprived us of the key nutrients we need for proper development, but it has also deprived us of the mechanical tension required to create strong, wide, and healthy jaws with straight teeth, especially during those early years when growth is far more substantial. This lack of jaw development can lead to secondary issues like mouth breathing, which can cause the face to regress even further, creating a vicious cycle. So far, we've covered nutrition and mechanical loading when it comes to building a strong, healthy jaw. But what is the core principle they all have in common? The real reason humans had such straight teeth and healthy jaws before dentistry wasn't genetics, luck, or better hygiene. It was the result of living in alignment with the conditions our biology evolved under. Conditions that shaped us for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And the same principle doesn't just apply to teeth, it applies to every system in the body. Proper nutrition, proper mechanical tension, proper timing during early development. All of this is also reinforced by other factors that made us human in the first place. Movement, social connection, circadian rhythm. It all traces back to our roots as hunters. Our large brains, our ability to plan, problem solve, and create tools, our capacity for language and cooperation. All of these traits point to a biology built around an optimization for hunting. None of these traits make sense unless we were built to prioritize nutrient-dense animal foods. This is the foundation of the expensive tissue hypothesis. The idea that our metabolically costly brains could only evolve because we ate energy-dense, highly bioavailable foods. Modern fixes like braces are essentially just dealing with the byproducts of misaligning our inputs with what our bodies truly need. Basically just high-tech band-aids. As Dr. Weston A. Price puts it, man's rise and fall has been a measure of his ability to learn and obey nature's laws of life. And if you want the other core principles behind everything we just talked about here, you can find them linked below.